Both the House and Senate have passed, and Governor Nathan Deal appears poised to sign into law a pair of bills aimed squarely at denying health insurance to hundreds of thousands of Georgia residents, while at the same time sticking it to Barack Obama. The first bill makes it harder to expand Medicaid in that state by taking the power to do so single-handedly out of the hands of the governor and requiring approval from the General Assembly as well. This gives Governor Nathan Deal some political cover and conveniently also gives Republican obstructionists a backstop should the Republican governor lose re-election this fall. The other anti-Obamacare bill that just cleared the Georgia legislature is even more extreme. The original sponsor, Republican State Representative Jason Spencer, explained with startling candor that the purpose of his bill, quote, is essentially non-compliance. We're not going to help this law get off the ground. Now, non-compliance with a federal law is not a term you often hear from a lawmaker as the ordering principle for a law they have crafted, because the term non-compliance with the law has, well, shall we say, some uncomfortable historical precedents. But what this legislation would do is ban any state organization from running insurance navigator programs to simply help Georgia consumers buy health insurance under Obamacare. It would also ban any state or local governments, agencies, or employees from advocating for Medicaid expansion except under certain circumstances. As you reported last night, all of this is creating a backlash movement of opposition in Georgia, where about 40 people were arrested in a series of protests yesterday. Joining me now is one of the people who was arrested, Rev Dr. Rafael Warnock, senior pastor of the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia, where he's been spearheading the state's Moral Monday movement. Pastor, is Governor Deal going to sign these into law?
Well, we certainly hope not. He still has time to do the right thing. That's why we gathered at this Capitol on yesterday to send to him a very clear message that he doesn't really want to be on this side of history. History has not been kind to governors who have stood in the doorway denying American citizens the benefits of being an American citizen. In 1954, it was access to a decent education. 60 years later, we're talking about access to decent health care. A federal decision has been made. In each instance, you have governors, that, if you will, standing in the doorway saying the president may have signed it, the Congress may have passed it, the Supreme Court may have upheld it, but we will not give you access to the fruits of our great democracy. I think all of us should be deeply concerned.
Do you think this is equivalent to Jim Crow? I mean, this is obviously a Jim Crow allusion, and obviously segregation, desegregation, and the term massive resistance, which characterized the Southern response to Brown v. Board.
I think we have to listen to the legislator's own words as he talks about non-compliance. And when in recent history have we seen this kind of obstruction? I mean, we are certainly living in a hyper-partisan season in our country. We debate these, feel very strongly about them. People on both sides of the aisle feel like they are patriots. But after we've had the argument and the law has been passed, why not comply to the law? I mean, there are things that many of us are unhappy about. You lose the argument, you try to win the election. It seems that there are those who say, well, if we can't win the election, we'll find a way to block people's access to polls, block people's access to health care. In a real sense, this is a crisis in our democracy. This is the worst kind of taxation without representation. I mean, think about it. The citizens of Georgia have paid for this Medicaid expansion through their federal taxes. And our state leaders have said, we will not expand Medicaid, although most Georgians have said that they would like to expand Medicaid. This is taxation without representation. You can use whatever kind of analogy that you would like to use, but it's a terrible situation, and all of us should be worried.
Yeah, that we should note it would also have a positive economic impact on the state. $40.5 billion in Medicaid funds would come into the state. There's an estimate that it would create 70,343 jobs statewide. That's from Georgia State University. Just to be clear about the kind of apocalyptic vision or the stakes that the other side sees in this fight. This is a Facebook posting from State Rep Jason Spencer, who's the sponsor of that bill. He says, when the Senate appeared to try to table the legislation, he said, I will identify the Republican Benedict Arnolds, the King George III, and his Myrmidons, who shipwrecked his path-breaking patriotic bill to prevent the federal Leviathan from commandeering the machinery of state government or resources to enforce ill-conceived federal health insurance mandates. A patriot saves his country from his government. This strikes me as a fairly extreme vision about what the Affordable Care Act and health insurance for poor people represents.
Well, it certainly has tones of succession, does it not? Some 150 years or so after the Civil War, the sense that the federal government is the problem. And it's hard to be lost on us that an African American happens to occupy the White House at this point.
Yeah.
It's quite ironic, Chris. I mean, during this debate, and again, we're Americans, and so we debate these things, and we debate them fiercely. But there were those who talked about death panels, and I submit that the death panel met on yesterday. It's called the Georgia State Legislature, and it decided that poor people, working poor people in this case, do not deserve an opportunity to make it into the middle class, to have decent health care in the richest country in the world.
And it is now up to the governor, up for re-election this fall, to decide whether to sign off on that decision. Rev Dr. Rafael Warnock from Ebenezer Baptist Church. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.